قل لي في الإسلام قولا لا أسأل عنه أحدا غيرك، قال قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Ustadh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan for joining us on another episode on Directly to the Scholars. Ayyakum. So, Shaykh, inshallah, we're going to be starting with the next scholar, Shaykh Sami al-Suqayr.
Shaykh Sami al-Suqayr, حفظه الله تعالى ورعاه وبارك في علمه وعمله. Shaykh Sami is from the Mushayqih of the Mamlaka who resides in the lands of Qaseem. Qaseem is 4 hours away from Medina and roughly another 3-4 hours away from Riyadh. So it's give or take halfway point
By driving?
in distance. Driving from Medina to Riyadh, distance 4 hours to Qaseem and then another 4 hours to Riyadh. Shaykh Sami, he grew up in Qaseem and he studied his early studies in Qaseem, and he took his bachelor's degree in the University of Imam Saud, the branch of Qaseem. Then he took his master's in Riyadh. He moved to Riyadh and he studied there, did his master's in Imam Saud University over there, the branch of Riyadh, the main branch, original. And then he took his PhD likewise in Riyadh, but in the Ma'had lil-Qadha al-ʿAli, which is basically a ma'had for judges and experts in fiqh and the likes. So he took his PhD here. He studied and is well known for being from the students of one of the great giants of Islam in the contemporary times. We've talked about previously Shaykh Ibn Baz, students, Shaykh al-Albani, some of his students. And now we're going to mention the third giant out of those three. He's a student of Shaykh al-Kabir, al-Allama Ibn ʿUthaymīn, rahimahullah ta'ala, rahmatan wasi'ah. He met Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn in the year 1983. This is when he first met the Shaykh, and he started to study with him. فَلَازَمَهُ حَتَّى تَوُفِّي. He continued to stick and benefit from the Shaykh up until the Shaykh passed away, roughly in the year 2000. So for 17 years, he was with the Shaykh. So it's a lengthy time period. The Shaykh is known to be almost a carbon copy of his teacher, Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, in the way he teaches, the way he asks questions, and even the authorships that he writes. That he took a lot from his teacher and he was affected by his teacher. And he married the daughter of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. So he is the family of the Shaykh. And every position Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, when he passed away, that he left behind, Shaykh Sami took over those positions. And so Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, he was the Imam and the Khatib of the Jami' of a main masjid in Qaseem. And Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn was very stern on not traveling a lot and staying in his vicinity to teach the people of Qaseem. He was offered a position to be a professor and a teacher in Islamic University of Madinah. He refused. He was offered positions in Riyadh and Mecca, but he refused, for the sole purpose of staying in his city to teach the people that were in Qaseem. Now he studied with his teacher, Shaykh Abdullah Nasr al-Sa'di, who likewise was the vanguard of teaching in Qaseem, and he took from his teacher and he continued. And who did he pass that baton to? He passed it on to Shaykh Sami al-Suqayr. In his wasiyah and counsel, the letter that he wrote before he passed away, he said that I counsel and advise that Shaykh Sami al-Suqayr, that he takes the position of imamah and khutbah in the masjid that he was at, the Jami', and that he revives it with knowledge and teaching and the likes of these. This is a great honor. Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn says that about him. Every position that Shaykh had, whether it was the head of Quran halaqat, Jam'iyya, or the likes of these affairs, Shaykh Sami took over after he passed away. And likewise, Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn was a teacher of the Haramain. He would visit, especially in Ramadan, Hajj, and different seasons. he would be invited to come and give talks and lessons in Masjid al-Haram in Mecca and Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina. And likewise, his teacher or his student, Shaykh Sami, does so likewise till today. Shaykh Sami is also involved in the foundation of Mu'assasat Ibn ʿUthaymīn, a foundation that was, just talking about the foundation itself is Jamil. The Shaykh, when he passed away, all the knowledge that he left behind, all the recordings that he left behind, what happened to it? Did it just indathar? It just went to waste? What happened? A mu'assasa, an organization, was established, and the head of this mu'assasa is one of the children of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, and they print the books of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. They transcribed the lessons of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn from the audios and made it into book form. And they did much other khidmah for the works of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn that he did in his lifetime to bring out the works to the people so that people can benefit from it. So one of the things that they do is, before they publish a book, especially if it's transcribed, is that they will put it to some of his main students. From them is Shaykh Sami. He will overlook it, supervise, read, double check, take out things that need to be taken out, because things that are appropriate for a lesson that is being taught in person, it's not appropriate for book form.
Correct.
So he would have the honor of supervising those works. So all of the works that comes out is under his supervision and his help and the likes of his affair. The Shaykh is like his teacher, very active and nasheed in teaching daily. Almost every day he has a lesson after Asr and is broadcasted on his Twitter page, X now they call it. He broadcasts it every day, so you can follow it even if you're not there. If you attend in person, he has dawrat, conferences and seminars almost every few months. We visited one time, me and a group of brothers from Medina, and he was going through Risalat al-Tabukiyya by Shaykh Islam al-Thani Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. Al-Tabukiyya, you know why it was written?
No.
Al-Tabukiyya refers to Tabuk. Tabuk is
a
city in Saudi Arabia. Ibn Qayyim was returning from Tabuk, and on the journey, on the camel, he wasn't just trying to kill time, sleeping, he wrote this Risala al-Tabukiyya on the journey back from the area of Tabuk. He was teaching this book. And the nature of these dawrats when Shaykh Sami teaches is that there will be a poster made a month or two ahead, and the students sign up. What they're signing up for is a place to be accommodated in the second of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn had the main Masjid Jami', and later on a second for students accommodation was made. So in the lifetime of Ibn ʿUthaymīn, this second, students would come from all over the world and they would stay in accommodation and they would go to his lessons that he would teach on a daily basis, every day, maybe sometimes more than one lesson in a day.
And would these accommodations be free of charge?
Free of charge.
Wow.
So Shaykh Sami, now he's the Imam al-Khatib and he holds the lessons in the masjid. There is accommodation for students that are visiting from different cities for the dawrah. Of course, it's mahdud, so you sign up and you get it. So we visited. We missed the sign up, so we couldn't stay in the second. So we had to get a little hotel that we shipped in. But we attended. The lesson was on from Fajr up until around 10 a.m. or close to Dhuhr time with a break. And we benefited greatly from the Shaykh. The Shaykh visited many times Medina and he's done many rasail. Some of the rasail that he's taught is Al-Risalatul Latifa by Shaykh Abdurrahman Nasir al-Sa'di in Usul al-Fiqh. He's taught Umdat al-Ahkam, and I think the lesson is continuing until now. He's taught Masjid al-Haram. One of our brothers, Shaykh Ibrahim Ibn Abdullah, used to read to him in Mecca. In those times, not many people knew of the Shaykh. So whilst he was studying in Mecca, he used to be the reader and the reciter for the Shaykh for the lesson. Shaykh is very humble, down to earth, and he has many authorships and books. From his authorships is a 10-volume explanation of Rawd al-Murbi'. Rawd al-Murbi' is the sharh of Zad al-Mustaqni', the famous text in Hanbali fiqh, and the explanation of that is Rawd al-Murbi', and he did a 10-volume explanation of that. Now his teacher did the famous explanation, he did a Sharh of Rawd al-Murbi', but his famous explanation of Sharh al-Mumti' over Zad al-Mustaqni', the original text. Yeah. He's got a famous explanation of that the students give a lot of hathawa and importance and concern to, and they buy and the likes. And so he followed the suit of his teacher by explaining the sharh of that method. Ala kulli hal, Shaykh Sami is from the Mushayqih that's alive today that can be benefited from, that teaches regularly in Mecca, Medina, Qaseem, visits Riyadh. He's got many authorships. He is considered from the Hayat Kibar Ulama today, major committee of major scholars in Saudi Arabia of recent. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give him a long life, for the students to benefit from his teaching style and the likes, which is very similar to the way of his teacher. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless him and increase him in khair.
Okay, Ustadh, you mentioned that the Shaykh, Allah Barak, he focuses on teaching his people in Qaseem. You also mentioned that he teaches us in the Masajid of the Haramain. So I can understand, perhaps, is it just Dawrat that he does over there, or is he mainly based in Qaseem? Can you just elaborate on that?
So the Shaykh, he resides in Qaseem. Okay. And he teaches there almost every day. Okay. Sometimes after Fajr and mainly after Asr. Some lessons afterwards. And the students read to him and it's broadcasted live. So this is his main durus, and I believe he even does the khutbahs and he leads the salahs in Qaseem. But then he goes once a month to Medina. So this is an ongoing lesson once a month. I believe Mecca he used to teach once a month. I believe now he just goes seasonally. Let's say for Ramadan, the last 10 nights, Hajj time, the likes of this. So he's not residing in Mecca and Medina. He's just traveling for the lesson once a month in Medina, 4-hour drive, and either stays the night and he's back in the morning, or he comes back the same day. So it's just a visit. And this is what Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn used to do at the end of his life as well. And the reason that Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn chose to stay in Qaseem, and perhaps his student Shaykh Sami is doing the same, because he could easily be a teacher in the University of Medina, but he stays in Qaseem. The reason why he said that is he wants to do ihya of ilm, reviving knowledge and continuing knowledge, and making sure that it's alive in his vicinity, in his city. And if he was to move to Mecca and Medina, on a personal level, it's great. And perhaps he will get a lot of ajr for all the people that he teaches over there.
Correct.
But who's going to be left for Qaseem? From that angle. And Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, as is known, is that he would never cancel a lesson. It's almost said that he did taqdees, he held it to be sacred, the lesson, that he could never cancel it for anything.
Wouldn't take it as an easy matter.
No, at all. And if you notice his students, any of his students that have studied with him, they have taken that from the Shaykh. That's almost like a madrasa, a way of the Shaykh, that he teaches, and his students likewise, that they teach lessons, they finish books from cover to cover, and they continuously teach lessons, and they don't cancel. They start a book, and they don't cancel that. Some other people might be known for, he starts a book and every month there's cancel. Maybe in the month there's only one lesson. And they've become quite known for that. We have that a lot in the West, the past. That the lesson will be not continuous. One book, you'll be sitting on it for 5 years. Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn is the opposite of that. He would finish books from cover to cover. That's why we have so many books. Majority of his books were audios that were transcribed.
Transcribed.
And they were complete. And Shaykh Sami is ala hadha nahj. He's upon the same way. Allah Azza wa Jalla accept it from all of them.
I mean, and Ustadh, you mentioned that the Shaykh, he's part of the committee of senior scholars. Yeah. We've also heard another one where the lajna, where the likes of Shaykh Ṣāliḥ are upon. Yeah. Could you just briefly describe to us the difference between those two committees and the roles that they have?
To be honest with you, I don't know the detail of what role they hold, but the major committee of ulama, they work in Dar al-Ifta, if you're referring to Dar al-Ifta.
Correct.
It's the same place that they work. Dar al-Ifta is the place where they give out fatawa, and the main body where masail are referred back to, major masail, and these ulama study and research, and they do a tawqi' and a fatwa together on the conclusion of this specific hukm. So we have the famous fatawa of the ulama in the time of Shaykh bin Baz and Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn and major scholars that lived at that time, Shaykh ʿAbdullah and others, that their names and their signatures would be on fatawa on certain issues that were nawazil, considered newly high topics that were hot at that time that needed a fatwa for the people in order to act upon. So he's part of that now.
Okay, Barakallah fiqh, Shaykh. May Allah award the Shaykh and honor him and accept his efforts. So the next Shaykh we have is Shaykh Khalid al-Mushayqih.
تمام. الشيخ الفقيه الشيخ خالد المشيقح حفظه الله ورعاه. He is from, again, the great students of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, and he's likewise from Qaseem. So we're in a roll with the students of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. The Shaykh studied in Qaseem with Quran when he was young, with a Pakistani Shaykh that taught him Quran that lived in Qaseem. Shaykh Ibn Iskandar, forgot his first name. Then he went through the school system, Ma'ahid of Mutawassita Thanawiyya, and then he did his bachelor's degree in Qaseem University, in the University of Muhammad ibn Saud, the same university as Shaykh Sami, did his bachelor's. Then he went to Riyadh to do his master's, and again his PhD in Ma'had al-Qada, the same place where Shaykh Sami did it. So literally the same footsteps of Shaykh Sami, bachelor's Qaseem, master's in Imam Saud in Riyadh, and then Ma'had al-Qada al-ʿAli in Riyadh. Then he returned back to Qaseem, and he met Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn 3 years later than Shaykh Sami. Shaykh Sami met him in 1983. Okay, so we were minus how many years? And Shaykh Khalid met him 3 years later, roughly 1986 is when he met Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, and he stayed with him and continued to benefit from him and attend his lessons up until Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn passed away. And so another 13 years, roughly 13, 14 years that he was with the Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayh. Shaykh Khalid Mushayqih likewise benefited a great deal from Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, and he's known again to be a great faqih and usuli. He gives a lot of ihtimam to that fan and that field, like Shaykh Sami.
Just briefly, usuli.
So usuli, faqih is a jurist, someone that is an expert in fiqh, and usuli is an expert in usul al-fiqh.
Okay.
And so we have fiqh and the usul al-fiqh, the science of fiqh, the principles that are connected to fiqh that help you in understanding fiqh and the dalalat of the nusus and the likes. So he's an expert just like Shaykh Sami in both fields, and they took the same academic path as each other, and they studied with the same Shaykh. They are friends. Shaykh Khalid traveled to India as well and studied other madhahib apart from the Hanbali fiqh. But his main ihtimam, as he's in Saudi Arabia, is the Hanbali fiqh, but he's got a lot of ihtimam with the Hanafi madhab. And he's studied many of the books of the Ahnaf with some of their teachers, and he traveled for that as well. So he's a faqih that also has ihtimam with other madhahib. Fiqh al-Muqaran, comparative fiqh. He's also known for, likewise, working with the Mu'assasa, the foundation, the organization, the foundation of Ibn ʿUthaymīn. And the foundation is a whole building dedicated to the work of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. The foundation, if you ever visit Qaseem, we visited it, it's mashallah beautiful. They have 2 large books as a sign of it's like the shi'ar of the foundation. They've made a structure of 2 large books, and that's the foundation or logo, if you like, of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. And then they have a building in there with offices and the likes. He is known for working on 2 main works. He supervises and helps with other works, but he helped in bringing out two major works of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. Inshallah, he has the reward for everyone that benefited from them. Number one, he's the Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn's famous explanation of, we mentioned it earlier, Zād al-Mustaqna. It's referred to as Sharh al-Mumti'. Mumti' is something that you enjoy. The Sharh that is Mumti' in the explanation of Zād al-Mustaqna. Who helped bringing it out? Shaykh Khalid al-Mushayqih. Likewise, the second book is القول المفيد في شرح كتاب التوحيد. قول المفيد is the excellent explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed by Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. 2 volumes. From the best explanations of Kitab al-Tawheed that the scholars advise with.
So was this, like you said earlier, it was audio format and then made into authorship works?
I'm not sure about the nature of it. It has to be double checked. I don't want to say. I can't remember. But he helped with bringing it out, whether that is transcribing it or double checking it or the likes of it. He was the one behind these 2 books being brought out. So that needs to be double checked, like an Allahu A'lam. Shaykh Khalid,
but he had
involvement in it, whether it was transcribing or bringing it out. Ala kulli hal, it can be checked easily, and the viewers, that can be their little homework to check out. Inshallah ta'ala. Shaykh Khalid also teaches in the university, and I think I forgot to mention Shaykh Sami teaches in the university as well in Qaseem. So they have their own university in Qaseem. Before, it used to be referred to as Jami'at Muhammad ibn Saud, Imam Muhammad ibn Saud. Same name as Riyadh. Now it's referred to as Qaseem, Jami'at Qaseem University. So when they studied, they had another name. Now it's just referred to as Qaseem University. He teaches there. Likewise, Shaykh Sami teaches there. Shaykh Khalid also teaches in Mecca and Medina.
And just to interject, I think this just shows the importance of people understanding that it's not just Medina University and al-Quran. These there's other jami'ats that consist of big mashayikh who are teaching in it throughout the kingdom.
Sahih, la shak. There are many universities in Saudi Arabia, as you have alluded to. There's Medina, Mecca, there's Riyadh, there's Qaseem, and there's many other places, Ta'if, Jeddah, and other than that. And all of them have scholarship. All of them have scholarship for the students. So it's recommended that a student that is interested in applying to these universities, that they try to apply to some of these other ones outside of just Mecca and Medina. And I believe now in the new portal, you're allowed to choose 3. So if you chose Mecca and Medina, you got Riyadh as well, you got Qaseem to choose as a 3rd option. Ala kulli hal, the Shaykh teaches in Mecca and Medina, and he visits and he's taught many books in Mecca and Medina, and he has lessons, weekly lessons in Buraidah, in Qaseem, the mantiq of Qaseem. And he travels a lot for dawrat as well, up and down the country in Saudi Arabia and abroad as well. He's visited the UK a number of times in the past. He's taught Ad-Durar al-Bahiyya, he's taught Usul al-Fiqh, and he's taught other books. And we visited him many times, alhamdulillah. The Shaykh is latif, very subtle, very shy, very humble, very easygoing. May Allah Azza wa Jalla increase him in khair, and those that have ihtimam with fiqh, they benefit from the Shaykh. Not just Hanbali, he's got ihtimam with Hanafi madhab and other madhahib. So questions that you have, you can benefit from the Shaykh and ask him if you meet him in person.
And Ustadh, I think it just shows the caliber of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. We're discussing some of these students and the giants that they are and what they've done for the Ummah.
Sahih.
So you can just imagine who Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn really was.
Sahih. And just to add to that, of course, these are not just all the students. He has many students.
Correct.
But these are 2 main students that we can mention here that I've met. And there are many others that I haven't met that can be benefited. Some of them have passed away, some of them are still alive. That the students of Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn stand out.
Correct.
If that's the caliber of the students, then it speaks volumes, as you said, of the teacher.
Correct.
If that speaks volumes of the teacher, it speaks volumes of his teacher.
Correct.
Shaykh Abdurrahman Nasir al-Sa'di.
No.
Allah, Shaykh Abdurrahman Nasir al-Sa'di is a giant from the giants of the previous generation, and that silsila continues today, and we hope that Allah Azza wa Jal continues that silsila of students coming out from that mantiqa of Qaseem to benefit the people bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
Ameen. Barakallah feek, Shaykh. Again, may Allah also honor and accept the Shaykh's efforts. The next Shaykh we have is Shaykh ʿAli Ababeteen.
بارك الله فيك. الشيخ علي أبابطين حفظه الله ورعاه وبارك فيه. is another teacher and a scholar from the scholars of the Mantiqah of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and he grew up in the area of Qaseem, I believe, and he studied his studies in Riyadh up until his PhD, and then later on he became a professor in the Islamic University of Madinah. He taught me in my first semester of Muharrar, which is the main hadith book that we do in Kulliyat al-Hadith in every semester.
And what year was this?
2016. Okay. And I never heard of the Shaykh before. And to be honest with you, there was another famous Shaykh teaching next door the same book in our batch. So there was 2 classrooms in our batch, so 30 and 30. And the names came out of the teachers. One was famous, and Shaykh ʿAli was not famous. And so you're allowed to sometimes change classrooms. Everyone tried to go to the other classroom, so they had to close off the list quickly. And I was not from amongst the people that changed. And so we just stayed and we don't have no choice. It worked out to be better because we actually benefited a great deal from the Shaykh. And the other Shaykh turned out to be quite harsh in teaching and marking and the likes. The Shaykh, we really got into the class and his teaching style and his kindness and generosity and even his awareness of the level of the students and breaking down things and making it easy for us. We asked him who he studied with. I personally asked him who did he benefit, did he meet Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn, because he was from that area of Qaseem originally. And so he said he studied with him a little bit, but he never was with him for a long time. And that the main Shaykh that he benefited from was Shaykh Ṣāliḥ al-Fawzān, because he was in Riyadh. And he told me that he's related to Shaykh Fawzān because the Shaykh's lineage, Ababeteen, is a famous family in Saudi Arabia, goes back to the Mufti of Diyar al-Najdiyah. Many years ago, he was called Shaykh ʿAbdullah Ababeteen. I believe it was in the second state of Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. The second, there's 3 states, the first, second, and third. And this is still the third. In the second state, when he came back, Shaykh Abdullah Ababeteen was the leading major scholar at that time. For those that don't know the history, I don't want to go into it too much, but some of the scholars that lived in Diriyah and the likes from the Saudi state, when they were attacked, there was للأسف الشديد disagreements between the Muslims and the Ottoman Empire and Saudi Arabia, and the Ottomans killed the people living in Diriyah and its scholars. From them was Shaykh Sulaiman, the explainer of Kitab al-Tawheed, Sahib Taysir al-Aziz, and he was taken back to Istanbul. He was only 33 years old.
Was he the grandson of
Shaykh Muhammad? He was humiliated, and women were placed in front of him, dancing in front of him, and music to humiliate him, and he was killed. Many of the scholars that lived in Diriyah at that time were killed. Shaykh Abdullah Ababeteen was not in Diriyah at that time. He was serving as a judge in another area. So he wasn't there when the massacre happened. So when the second state came back up, he was from the major scholars, the remaining major scholars that was alive. So he became the Mufti Diyar al-Najdiyah, and he wrote many books, and he had a lot of fatwa and effect in teaching the people. He goes back to the lineage of that major Shaykh. Shaykh Ṣāliḥ Fawzān's, likewise, he goes up to this Shaykh Abdullah Ababeteen, Shaykh Ṣāliḥ lineage, from the direction of his mother. Okay. Not his lineage, from the direction of his mother, he's got a connection. His mother, Shaykh Fawzān's mother, goes back to that. So from that side, from his mother's side, his family to Shaykh ʿAli Ababeteen. So from that angle, he studied with him for more than 15 years, he told us, and benefited a great deal from him. And he was in Riyadh at the time of Shaykh Ibn Baz, so he benefited from the lessons of Shaykh Ibn Baz and others. But he said the main Shaykh that he really benefited a great deal from was Shaykh Ṣāliḥ al-Fawzān. From the moments of his kindness that we experienced when he was teaching us as new students is, at one time, a new book came out by Shaykh Abdullah Fawzān. Shaykh Abdullah Fawzān is different from Shaykh Ṣāliḥ Fawzān. He lives in Qaseem and he's got a lot of authorships. He doesn't have that many lessons by audio, a lot of books. From the most famous of his books is, he's got a Sharh of Bulugh al-Maram that is complete. And it's considered from the best of explanations of Bulugh al-Maram of contemporary times. But then we have the book Al-Muharrar, which we study in the Kulliyah al-Hadith. Al-Muharrar is similar to Bulugh al-Maram, but it's different. And he has extra hadith that Bulugh doesn't have. So Shaykh Abdullah Fawzān, he already explained all of Bulugh al-Maram. He wanted to explain Muharrar, but instead of doing all over again, he just got the Zawa'id, those extra additional ahadith in Muharrar that are not found in Bulugh, and he explained them. That's referred to as, and he called it Rawdatul Afham fi Zawa'id Muharrar ala Bulugh al-Maram, or something similar to this, in 4 volumes. This was new in the market. Shaykh told us about the book and he encouraged us to buy it. And then he told us, because we were studying with him Mustalah Hadith private lesson, he said, come to me tomorrow. He came the next day. He bought a lot of copies, put it in the back of his car. He took us downstairs after the lesson. We followed him. He opened his boot and he gave every single one of us a free copy of Rawdatul Afham. And I still have the copy with me at home. Every time I see the copy, I remember the Shaykh. May Allah put it heavy on his scales of good deeds. Shaykh Ababeteen is known for being an expert in hadith. More specifically, ulum al-hadith. Mustalah of hadith. How is a hadith authentic from not authentic and the likes. And he is from the top Mushayqih that had an effect upon me in loving this science even more. That he took us from a basic level to understanding some of the basics, to use some of the books. He gave us a lot of his time. And maybe the thing that helped us was he was not known at all in Medina, because he came from the side of Qaseem and Riyadh. So no one knows him in Medina. Even some of the mashayikh that we asked, many of them didn't know. Up until Shaykh Muhammad Hadi was asked. And they knew each other from Riyadh, from the lessons of Shaykh Ibn Baz and Shaykh Fawzān and the likes. So because he was unknown, he doesn't have a crowd of people following him. He doesn't have a lot of attention from... There's a lot of students in Medina. So we started a private lesson with him. We asked him if we can have a Mustalah Hadith class. So he started with us. The book Mustalah al-Hadith, written by Shaykh Ibn ʿUthaymīn. Blue cover. We started that with him. Then he gave us a workshop on how to use some of the books of hadith, like Tuhfatul Ashraf al-Mizzi. Back in the day, now you got computers and ChatGPT and AI. I don't know how far it's going to take this even further now. And before that, we had Shamila. Shamila is a computer system where you can put in a wording of a hadith and it will bring that wording out in all of the books of hadith that you can find. We had applications, Kutub al-Tis'a, where you can put in a word and it will tell you where that word is or that hadith is in all the books. Okay. Before this, and even us as new beginners, we didn't know of how to use Shamila and Kutub al-Tis'a. I only learned that maybe at the beginning of masters. But at this time, beginning of Kulliyah, we had no knowledge of that, which was good in a way, because we learned the traditional way from the Shaykh how to use it. What would the scholars of the past do? Obviously, in the time of the Salaf, yes, they had everything memorized. Correct. But the middle time, in the years 600, 700, 800, 900, memorization became lower. Everything was written down. So they made means to be able to search for a wording or a hadith, especially when they did takhrij and grading, by these types of books. Kutub al-Atraf is one of them, where they have they gathered the beginnings, the taraf, the beginning of a hadith with the name of the Sahabi, and they will tell you which books have them in the specific books that he is sticking to. So let's say he's sticking to the 6 canonical books or the 9 books of hadith, or more than that or less than that. Like Tuhfat al-Ashraf lil-Mizzi, he sticks to the main books of hadith, and everything the authors of the main books of hadith authored as well. So he taught us how to use that. There's a specific way of using it and figuring it out. How do I find this hadith by Ibn Abbas? Okay, I know it's in Sunan Abi Majah, but I want to see where else is it. Okay, it's in Sunan Tirmidhi, in this hadith by using this book. Like, what if you want to find them in a higher scope outside of these 10 or so odd numbers of books? There's another book that completed more books by Hafidh ibn Hajar. This one was written by Hafidh al-Mizzi, one of the great scholars of hadith that lived in the same time as Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Hafidh ibn Hajar came later on, and he, roughly 150 years later, he wrote a tatimma, a continuation of that same style, but with different books that he never mentioned. Another 10 books. And it's called Ithaf al-Mahara. And so Shaykh ʿAli Ababeteen got us both books out, and he gave us a workshop on how to use this book and how to use that book.
So Ustadh, what would you say is optimal for a student of knowledge? In terms of, for instance, if you're going to go for research, one can say going through the books and searching for it is not really a waste of time. Rather, you'll be learning as you read.
Definitely.
Or rather than, for example, using these Shamil, for instance, where you save time.
Yeah, and Shamil, yeah, save. So which one is optimal compared to? Good question, Akhi. Look, both of them are very important. لا يستغني هذا عن هذا. This doesn't make you independent of that one, and neither vice versa. Why? You need to know how to use these books, Tuhfat al-Ashraf and the likes, Ithaf al-Mahara, because there might come a time where you need it. Let's say you're in a position where you are in a land where there is no electricity and you can't use Shamila. Or, لا قدر الله, let's say Shamila got hacked and the program went away and it's not able to do those functions anymore. And similar things have occurred, and even though hacked is maybe going a bit far, but they might update it and change the whole system. We used to use, later on in the years, an app on the phone called Jami' al-Kutub al-Tis'a. It's still about, but the functions that it had and how easy it was to use before, compared to when they updated it, is bayna as-sama'i wal ard. I don't use it anymore because they've changed it completely. It doesn't have the same usage, and everyone says the same thing. So it's possible that you won't have that functionality for one reason or another. So it's good to have knowledge of how to use these books, Kutub al-Atraf and other than them. So if you do have to go back to it, you know how to do it. You have no problem. Number 2, it's important to learn how to use these applications, Ash-Shamila, Barnamij Khadim al-Haramain, and other hadith programs that exist and the likes. And perhaps now AI programs that are coming out that gonna do khidmah, service of finding things and research from to Kutub al-Tafsir or Kutub al-Hadith and the likes of these others. That you need to learn this. It's very important to learn this. Why? يوفر لك الوقت. It will save a lot of time for you. And sometimes you need that. You could get 10 times the things done if you use this over doing the traditional. Well, I would say, I'm not going too far to say that the one that authored al-Mizzi or Ibn Hajar, if they were alive today, they would be using these programs in order to find a hadith in their research. This is what they had available alone. Correct. Okay, so we shouldn't be jamid and cold and say to these, well, we're not going to use this, we're not going to be traditional ways and methods. They had that. They made those means, even though they weren't around for those that came before them, they made those means to make it easier for them to research and the likes. There are better means now available that you can use. Specifically, Tuhfat al-Ashraf and Ithaf al-Mahara and these, you almost do not need to use them at all today if you're doing takhrij and the likes of these affairs. In fact, you can use these programs without having to go back to these books of Tuhfat al-Ashraf. But, important, pay attention that You using this doesn't mean that you solely rely upon it.
Correct.
Even Tuhfat al-Ashraf, you don't solely rely upon it. It tells you this hadith is in Musnad of Imam Ahmed, is in Musnad of Abi Ya'la, is in Kitab al-Tabarani, is in this one, is in that one. Okay? It's in this chapter, that chapter, this chapter. Okay? You got the reference points? It was helping you to find the reference points. Now you've got them. Now you have to go back to the original source and double check. Even with these books, Atraf, you have to go double check. Go back to Musnad Imam Ahmed, go back to Musnad Abi Ya'la, go back to the book of Tabarani. You double check, do they have the hadith? Because maybe they made a mistake. Likewise, the computer. It makes mistakes. You have to go back to the original book. You have Muslim Imam Ahmed, you go back to it, double check. Okay, yeah, it was right. It's got that. Okay, khalas, that was good. Go to the next book. So it helps you in finding the information, but you still have to double check if that information is correct or not correct. Many people have fallen into mistakes by solely relying upon Shamila. And their whole life is just Shamila and they've never touched a book. The fa'idah that you're mentioning as well, of looking for things on the book, is immense as well, especially when you're a new student and maybe you're not stuck on time, you have a research to hand in at a certain time. That you have time, that you're not really writing a research paper, you're just looking for a fa'idah, that you go through the original books. Why? Whilst you're looking for it, you go through one fa'idah that you weren't looking for, a second, a third, a fifth, a 10th. A mas'ala jadida ma marrat bik, because whilst you're searching for it, you're going to go past all these pages. And perhaps you might come through information that you don't need now, but in the future you might need, and you remember, look, I saw that here. That's what happened to Shaykh Albani. Shaykh Albani in Maktab al-Zahiriyya had a book he was looking for and it had one page missing, or the front cover missing. And so he said, perhaps this page that's missing is stuck in another book, because it happened before. Correct. So he decided to check the Maktaba book by book, shelf by shelf, field by field, up until he went through all of the books in the library, manuscripts, not even published. Then he said, I saw a lot of benefits. Let me do it again. He didn't find a paper, but he had an idea. Let me do that again, but this time let me write benefits and fawaid and books that I didn't even know existed. He started writing, and he got printed later, that book of fawaid that he got from the book. So, la shakka fiha.
So, just going back to Shaykh ʿAli Ababeteen, at the moment, is he still a teacher in the Jami'ah, or is there anything else he takes in?
Naam. As I mentioned, when we first met the Shaykh, he wasn't really known to many people in the city of Medina and the students and the likes. But alhamdulillah, slowly and surely, more people became aware of him, especially after Shaykh Muhammad Hadi directed the people to him. And he received a tasrih, permit to teach in Masjid al-Nabawi. And he started to do a number of lessons throughout the week. And he still teaches. In fact, now he has more lessons than before. He teaches in Masjid al-Nabawi, he teaches in Masjid Quba, he teaches Jami' al-Tirmidhi, I believe he's teaching Sahih Bukhari, teaches some Aqidah books. So he's a sheikh that is very mufid and he knows his science. He used to teach us before he was teaching in the masajid, he used to teach in the library of Kulliyat al-Hadith and at times in his house. We used to visit his house. And the sheikh's very welcome, open. And he would teach Sharh Ilal al-Tirmidhi. This is a very deep, higher advanced level book in the science of Ilal and in the science of Mustalah, Ulum al-Hadith, learning about the tabaqat of the narrators and he taught us how to do a shajara. So you have a tree that branches off with a chain. So this hadith has been narrated by the people in 10 different books. How do I write it down? I can see it as a tree branch. It's called Shajaratul Isnad. He taught us how to do that. How to check these names from the books. How to check the level of this student with the teacher. Is he from his students that lazama, who stayed with him for a long time, is very strong in the hadith of his teacher? Or was he just a visitor that came one time, he didn't hear much from him? Because this benefit is, if there's 2 students or 5 students that have differed in their narration from their teacher, 4 of them were with him all the time and 1 was a visitor, and he said something that opposes the 4, we benefit from this, that maybe he didn't get it right, because these 4 were with him all the time. وهكذا, these qawaid, we benefited a lot from him in the study of Sharh al-Tirmidhi from him. We used to teach in his house as well. We studied Umdat al-Ahkam with him. But now all of his lessons are public, and I don't believe he teaches in the library anymore or the masjid. He just teaches all of his lessons in the masjid, not in his house anymore. But he's very nasheed. We try to tell him to come to the UK, but he doesn't like to travel at all. So he only teaches in Medina. You have to go to Medina to benefit from him. But I was messaged the other day by some of the students, and they were amazed by his level of knowledge that he's teaching from the top of his head. And his hifdh is qawi. One time I recorded in a lesson, he was teaching us in the kulliyah. He mentioned from the top of his head asanid for different hadith from the top of his head. And we were writing and we just stopped writing. We just stopped amazed, like Allah Akbar. And the Shaykh used to praise in the lesson a lot. This is the first person I heard this name from, scholar. His name was Al-Hafidh Imam al-Daraqutni. Daraqutni, before that I never knew anything of him. But Shaykh, كثرة ما يردد اسمه Shaykh ʿAli Ababeteen. How many times he's repeating his name? Daraqutni, Daraqutni. And he praised him. And he mentioned to us the statement of al-Dhahabi. The station of Daraqutni became so high in our eyes now. He wrote a book of ilal, it's printed in 10 volumes. He mentioned the statement of Imam al-Dhahabi. If this book, it is mentioned that al-Daraqutni amlahu, he orally dictated the book to his student from his memory. Asanid, ilal, yani, if you understand what that is, that's something immense. It reaches 10 volumes and he's got thousands of different chains of narration. One hadith that he's talking about studying, he will mention these 5 have gone, and he mentioned the chains, have gone against this one because this one did this one's like this, the narrator has been said about him such from his memory. And Dhahabi said, if that is true, that he did all of that from his memory, then he is the biggest hafidh of the dunya. But if that is not the case, and he dictated some of it orally from his memory and some of it from his book, then he is still a great hafidh, but there are similar huffaz to him. But if he did it all from his memory, it's the greatest hafidh in the dunya that we've seen.
SubhanAllah. I think this gives like a different understanding to the concept of how Allah chooses the scholars to protect this religion.
Sahih.
Truly, SubhanAllah.
Allah bless him. So this is Shaykh ʿAli Ababeteen. We hope there's some benefit in that which we mentioned. The Shaykh's alive and he's teaching and he's well. I highly recommend, especially students of hadith and mustalah, to benefit him, especially in ilal. Allahu Akbar. If the students that are there are listening to this, if they can open with him a lesson in Sharh ilal Tirmidhi, because it's not something you can teach in a masjid, you need it in a library or the likes, correct, that they should really push him to that. Barakallah fikum.
Fikum barakallah. Jazakumullah khairan, Shaykh. May Allah allow us to benefit from these great giants and accept their efforts. We'll end it there, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.